Well, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Sherry Gaba. She's the resident psychotherapist and life coach on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. She's also the editor of Recovery Today magazine, and she's the author of The Law of Sobriety and The Marriage and Relationship Junkie. She also has an amazing online program that we're going to talk about called Wake Up Recovery, and we're going to go deep into her story of love addiction. I think you're really going to get a lot out of this, and her dog, Mocha, even makes an appearance. So here we go with Sherry Gaba.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
Well, Sherry Gaba, I am so excited and honored that you decided to come on and have a conversation with me today. We are going to go deep into love addiction, which is a topic that we haven't explored before. And I couldn't think of anyone better to explore that topic than the master herself. Welcome.
Oh.
Thank you, Sherry, for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. I love what you're doing. I love these podcasts that you have, these interviews, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, you are in sunny LA right now, and I'm here in Ottawa. We're trying to get sunny outside, but it's still early spring here. So we're going to warm up with these conversations. I want to share with people your big project that you're doing right now, which is an amazing initiative. You do a group coaching program. It is called Wake Up Recovery. I want you to tell us, what is Wake Up Recovery and who is it for?
Oh, wow, Sarah. That's a great question. Well, about 9 years ago, I wrote a book called The Law of Sobriety, which took law of attraction and recovery together. I found that after showing the movie The Secret to a lot of clients at the rehabs I was working at, they just went, oh my God, this works. You just have to think it, believe it, and receive it. So I created this book, but I wanted to go deeper. And after my divorce 6 years ago, I went even deeper. I started studying with Bob Proctor, and we talked about Peggy McCall and some of these law of attraction experts. I sort of dove deeper, and I decided I need a community where I can offer coaching at a really, really, really reasonable price, because not everybody can afford coaching. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and that is my bread and butter, but I also love reaching the universe, right? So I created Wake Up Recovery, which is really for people that want to dive deeper into the law of attraction in their recovery, whatever they're recovering from. It could be anything from love to codependency to drugs and alcohol to workaholism. What's really interesting is now I'm getting a lot of recovery coaches that want to use this platform because they want to build their recovery coaching business. And by using the law of attraction and building out their brand, they can do this because they see how much I've done in the last 9 years, which to me is all the law of attraction. I mean, getting on Celebrity Rehab, meeting Dr. Drew, that was all my law of attraction. So it's a very exciting, what's exciting for me is I can just offer so much free. It's not free, it's $19 a month, but so much content for people that they don't have to like spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on coaching, which, you know, there are coaches out there charging $5,000, $3,000, and that's great for them. But for me, my model is I want more people to be able to afford, to be able to afford the understanding of the principles of the laws of the universe.
So tell us, what would the experience be if we decided to pay the $19 a month? So now we get into the program. What is the first step, and walk us through what the experience is like?
Okay, well, there's a 10-week audio program that I created called Wake Up Recovery. So they're going to get every week a new module about the Wake Up Recovery process. And a lot of those steps are based on my book, but expanded to be much larger. Then they have not thousands, they have hundreds of interviews that I've done, like yourself. I've been doing these interviews for about 4 years now. So great expert interviews, lots of tools for the recovery coaching business, how to enroll clients, how to brand themselves, how to get more publicity. So there's that little recovery coaching angle, but not everybody in it is a recovery coach. What else? Let's see, there's a self-care inventory in there. God, now I'm just like blanking out. What's in my portal? There's so much material, blogging, lots of blogs. And then the community on Facebook where everybody interacts with each other, which is huge, that private group. Then once a month, I do a live Q&A where they get me live. And then another time during the month, I send them another presentation of an audio that I've done. Again, going deeper into the laws of the universe, law of reciprocity. How do we say that word wrong?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. I can never say that word, Sarah. And laws of abundance and prosperity. And just, my whole thing is, Sarah, is keeping it in your vibration, keeping that positivity in your brain. It's all repetition.
Yeah.
If we think of like Bob Proctor, who was on The Secret, when I heard him speak and I met him, he had that book, How Think and Grow Rich. And he had that book and it was tattered, but it's because he reads it every single day.
He studies it as
he studies it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so even, even going to 12-step meetings is really the law of attraction. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just adding another piece for people. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in the 12 steps and I believe in yoga and recovery. And I believe in Buddhism and recovery. And I think if we all just, share what we love, we all work together and it's just all an added benefit for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I know I talk to lots of people on this platform, and it's so amazing to see all the different ways that everybody's decided to get sober and to get into recovery and to feel so good in their lives now that they've gotten, away from whatever it was that was holding them back. And I think that's the big key here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are afraid of the 12 steps. This all came from my own experience where people would come to my office and they're like, I'm too nervous. I don't want to go to a meeting by myself. And I'm like, okay, maybe if we start here, because, we learn as therapists, start where your client is. If we just start here, maybe that will bring you to the 12 steps. Let's just start where people are and make them comfortable and safe and secure, because it's a big step trying to get sober and trying to recover from anything. For me, it's codependency and love addiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to get into your story, and we are going to go diving deep into your story. But I want to, I want to stay on the resource. So I want people to know about Wake Up Recovery. Where do they find it? How do they kind of go deeper with you if they want to get involved in this? And then I want to ask you, how did the law of attraction come into your life? How did you first discover it? But so first, tell us how people get into it.
And I believe you're a big law of attraction person, right? Okay,
yes.
That's what I was reading about you, so I was really excited about that. Okay, they just go to wakeuprecovery.com. Just start there, wakeuprecovery.com. They can also go to my website, sherrygaba.com, and there's a link there as well. Feel free to write me if you have any questions. I'm really easy to engage. I want to hear from you. The way the law of attraction came about is I was at a networking event. I was working at Promises, which it's a big rehab, where really one of the first residential rehabs at a home for all the stars, celebrities. And I was working there, and I was at a networking event through that working at Promises. And one of the other, and I guess she was a spiritual coach, was telling me about the movie The Secret. And I'm like, wow, okay, I got to check this out. So I loved it. And then I thought, I want to show this movie to the clients because they get so tired of the same old groups, the same old like relapse prevention or, whatever, the same old groups. And they love the movie. And I thought, God, there's something here. There's something here about bringing sobriety and recovery together. And I was doing Celebrity Rehab. And again, that also was the law of attraction for me, because the first time I saw Celebrity Rehab on TV, I said, I'm going to be on that show next year. They only have counselors. They don't have licensed clinicians. I'm going to be on that show. And by a series of miracles, I met Dr. Drew. And then for the next 4 years, I was on his TV show. So that was like really putting that intention out there. Mm-hmm. And it's just like everything that you do, you try not to get attached to the outcome. You just stay focused. God, I'm losing my voice. I'm just so excited. When you're writing a book, you don't think about how many people are going to buy your book, or should I, what happens if I just self-publish? Is that a bad decision? Is that a good decision? Just write your book. Mm-hmm. Just get inspired, write your book, and then leave it alone and put it away. and let the magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's part of the law of attraction for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
just
I
like,
would love now to go back into your story, and then that's going to lead us kind of all the way full circle. So let's get because I've read some of your story, and it's remarkable how it all kind of comes about. So start us from when you're a child, and then work all the way through. I know you've had a lot of experience with love addiction, and we want to hear about it. So let's go.
oh, okay. Well, people love when I share this, it usually will help one person out there, is that I was an incubator baby. I was premature. I lived in an incubator for 3 months, did not bond with my mother for 3 months. So I had major attachment issues, separation anxiety, abandonment issues. It was huge. And I always knew there was something wrong with me, and I didn't know what it was. I just never felt whole. I always felt empty. And so the only way I could feel not empty was to connect. And so because I was so desperate, I would always connect with the wrong people. I had a very, very bad picker because it was more important that I connect with anybody versus because I couldn't bear being alone. And so from early on, I've been married 4 times. I think I was impulsive because I didn't want to be alone. I mean, it's just like the addict that can't be without the alcohol. If the love addict can't be without the love. It's this idea that you think that person's going to fill you up, that person's going to make you feel whole. And all it really does is you end up picking people that are not available, because the truth is you're not available to yourself. And so,
so can I ask, when you were an incubator baby, and at 3 months old, then you were reunited with your mother. And obviously all of this understanding comes later with you working on yourself and understanding the brain and what happens. But did you ever bond with your mom as a young girl?
Wow, that's a big question. What's really interesting about that question is that a lot of women that I meet in Al-Anon have these narcissistic abandonment issues with their mothers. It's very interesting. Yep. My mother did everything she could that she knew how, but she was neglected. So not only was I late into the world meeting her, once I met her, my mother had her own issues. She wasn't always present. Mm-hmm. She, was heavily neglected by her parents. So my mom did the best she could to, quote, act as if, but there wasn't really this presence. I had a lot of presence with my father. I had a wonderful dad. He died 3 years ago. That's part of my story, because when he died, I felt like the foundation, I was really bonded to him, and I felt like my foundation was gone. And that was
I'm definitely feeling some similarities with my relationship with my mother, growing up and not really bonding with her. But luckily I feel having my dad to bond with. So I can relate to so much of your story, because I lost my dad 5 years ago, and same thing, I felt like my biggest cheerleader was gone, and what I've come to learn is that he is still right here.
Yeah. I hear you, Sarah.
And, Sherry, I find sometimes my father suffered greatly with severe depression and addiction. And I feel sometimes that he is more accessible to me now than he was even when he was living on this earth. Does that make any sense?
Wow. Oh, sure. Yeah. My dad channels through me all the time. Like when I need to figure things out, he's like right there. He's even helping me with my mother right now, because my mother now has dementia. And she met a gigolo. Talk about a bad picker. After my wonderful dad passed away, this man, just kind of like a predator, sort of came in to her space. And, they're both kind of using each other, I would say. And he just comes through me and says, leave your mom alone. I mean, this is her path. This is what she needs. She can't be alone. So it's kind of a generational thing. And people will see that in my book, The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, that it really started with my grandmother, who also was a love junkie. I mean, she had 4 marriages, and the man that her last relationship stole everything out of her apartment while she was dying of cancer. And then you've got my mother picking this guy, even though she did pick well when she picked my dad. And then of course me with all of my, I don't like to say failed relationships, but picking people for the wrong reasons. And so, I just want to make a difference. If there's some 20 plus someone out there, 30 plus, for any age, I guess really the younger ones, because everybody thinks that it's the wedding, it's the white picket fence, and all that's great if you make a good choice. But life is a series of choices. And once you start making choices, And their choices, well, they will change the trajectory of their whole life. I mean, being a single mother changed my whole life. I wouldn't change it for anything because I adore my daughter and now I'm a grandmother. But that one decision to marry the person out of a rebound situation changed my whole life.
But I do want to kind of be able to go through your story a little bit so that we can understand how Sherry Gaba came to be, you know, on Celebrity Rehab, and how you are writing all these books and doing all of these programs and believing wholeheartedly in the law of attraction and working with the law of attraction. So I want to work our way through. So tell us when was the first inkling so did you know as a kid that you were not accepted, that you were not bonded to your mother? How did that play out in your relationship and in your feelings with just yourself alone?
Well, one thing I just want to backtrack a little bit is that it isn't all bad. You know, being the fact that we were abandoned or we had this lack of bonding with our mother, it also created trauma, which trauma sometimes fuels energy. And because of that, I've had a lot of energy to do a lot of things in my life. So like you, Sarah, who has done many things, that's the positive side. It's harnessing it in a positive way. So it's not all bad. I knew that I just didn't fit in. You know, the same story you hear a lot about from addicts and alcoholics. You know, it's this feeling of not fitting in, not being a part of, wanting to be loved, wanting, you know, I had my dad, he was there, he was pretty hands-on. My mother was kind of unavailable. I had a first love when I was 14, and it was a wonderful experience until I was 18, but then he broke my heart. And so that really like destroyed me. And we're not talking about like ordinary breakup destroy. We're talking like, it was almost like pathological. And I ended up with my first husband and kind of on a rebound. And I love to share this funny story because at my wedding, all of a sudden the host of the band says, you know, we are bringing Sherry her first love. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, my first love is at my wedding? What's going on here? What they meant was a dance with my dad. And I didn't know what they meant. And that's how crazy I was, you know, thinking about my first love at my wedding to my first husband. It just sounds so sad, but hey, you know, these are the choices you make if you're really insecure, and you settle, you know, for what you're worthy of so much more. And that's the point I want to make.
Did you know that it was a rebound relationship when you got into it, or were you just the kind of person that you always needed to be in a relationship to feel good or feel whole?
I would say it's the second. I would just say I just needed to be loved. I needed the attention of somebody. It didn't matter who it was going to come from. And that's how I made my choices. I'm not saying I mean, the marriages that I've been in, I mean, I think I loved a couple. Sounds so funny. I think I loved a couple of them. I mean, there, you know, I probably loved other people more than the ones I married. But again, you know, what was my intention? Where was I coming from? And, you know, they weren't all my mistake. You know, sometimes, you know, one person wanted someone younger, so they left me. Another one was abusive, so I had to leave them. I mean, it wasn't all bad choices, but I think that if I would have felt better about myself and really felt whole inside myself, I think I would have attracted something much better in my life, someone much better into my life. I really believe that. And the good news is, you know, a lot of my focus was on my daughter. I have an amazing daughter. So
you had a baby with the first husband?
Yeah. Very successful. And I have a granddaughter who's just adorable. And so lots of good things came out of all of these things that were very painful. But when you're in terror, I mean, just terror, you're going to make choices that are not going to benefit you in the end. And so right now I'm not in terror. I'm learning how to live, you know, on my own. I did for 4 years. I divorced my fourth husband. But then as we were discussing earlier, I did bring him back into my life because I was feeling vulnerable again after 4 years with my dad dying and my mother and her boyfriend and all this other stuff that was going on. And I made another bad choice and I brought him back into my life. He didn't have a recovery program and he relapsed. And so here I am again, you know. So some of us just have to get bumped on the head a few times before we finally get it.
So who is husband number 2 and how did that come to play? Because we've now jumped from husband 1 and baby to husband 4 and
God, that's
relapsing.
So
there's a lot going on in between that time. So I want to cover all of it. So husband number 2, how does he come about?
Oh, well, he's, this like really hot looking guy from New York, just, that New York accent, kind of like my dad. And I got engaged after 6 weeks. It's sort of like, if you smell good and look good, I'm going to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
Always a bride, never a bridesmaid kind of thing. So yeah, we got married, and, that lasted 10 months. Part of the issues weren't just the choices that I made, but also having a daughter and being a single mother, and then having these men want to come in there and kind of control the parenting aspect is a huge issue. So, I have to also look at the situation too, is that when you're a single mom, sometimes your choices aren't great, and then they come in, and I just, I didn't want anybody to really control my parenting. I needed to be the parent, and I had to protect my daughter from, that kind of thing where they were, wanting to control and make the rules. That's just not really what their job is. Their job is to sort of be the vice president, not the president.
Yeah, well put. So obviously, somewhere along the way, you decided to go back to school and to get your Bachelor of Social Work. So when did that happen in the process?
That was marriage number 3.
Okay.
That was 4 months. He was very abusive. I had to get out of that. Mm-hmm. What I say to people about that is, if it's not right, and I knew it wasn't right, and I tried to get out of it a couple weeks, get out of it, run. I'll never forget the day of the wedding. There's this big like door that opens up, and there's these pedestals of flowers and 300 people. His family had planned this wedding because I already had 2 weddings, so I wasn't going to plan it, but they were all into it. Just before I go down the aisle, the pedestals of flowers fall on my wedding dress. So talk about God. God has always been there. God's like, do not do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I should have not ever given him any of my time or work, because he was just very, very, very abusive. However, I wouldn't have become a therapist if it wasn't for him, because I thought, well, if this guy can be a psychologist and he's in that case, anyone can. So I have to thank him for that. You have to just laugh. You have to laugh, Sarah, about all of these experiences. So yeah, we divorced him. I became a therapist, and I'm grateful for him for that one thing.
Absolutely. Well, like you said earlier, I mean, these are all choices that we make that lead us whatever direction. And they're, instead of having regrets about it, I think it's a matter of having eyes wide open and looking back on things that happened and looking towards the future, towards things that we want to make happen. And that is how the law of attraction plays out in our lives. Too many people think, okay, law of attraction, close my eyes, imagine something. Oh, look, it's not there. It doesn't work. And it's like, that is not the law of attraction. The law of attraction is happening around us, whether we want to agree with it or not. It just simply is. And we either work with it, or we, work against it, or we don't believe in it. It doesn't matter. It's there. The choices that we make in a moment to moment, day to day, hour to hour, week to week, month to month, year to year basis create the lives that we live.
I was just going to say, exactly. The results of your life is right in front of you. The choices I have made are right in front of the life that I'm living right now. Mm-hmm. Some good, some not so good. Mm-hmm. And when I share these love addiction stories, think about the addict who like loses their kids, or loses their home, or becomes homeless, or has financial consequences or wreckage. Even though it sounds like, how could she do that? How could she do that? Well, I did it because I was a love addict, and this is my wreckage. My wreckage are all of these things that happened to me.
Yes. I love that you said that, because I think that, as Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich wrote, who better than the alcoholic to help other alcoholics than the person who has been there? Who better to teach about love addiction than the person who's actually been through love addiction?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Because as I was telling the stories, I was getting a little judgment. That little judgmental thing was going, oh my God, people must think she's crazy. And then I realized, no, this is my wreckage. This is my wreckage. And it's a work in progress. It's a constant work in progress.
Well done. So well done. Congratulations. Because just like with other people that I've interviewed for this, that have gone through, that have shared their rock bottoms and their horrible moments with alcohol or drugs, this is the exact same situation. But yet I don't think enough of us look at it in this same way. I think you're right. In society, we look at people who have been married 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and we think, oh my gosh, what is
what a loser. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And instead
a lot of stigma around that.
Absolutely. So tell us then, when was it that you decide, so you husband number 4, you then go and get your degree. Did you know that you were struggling with love addiction at any point leading up? Like the way that someone with addiction issues, like we can kind of say, I think there's a problem with this substance that I'm using. Is it the same kind of thing with love addiction? Do you have inklings where you're like, why do I keep chasing the wrong people? Does any of that come up, or is it only in hindsight with love addiction?
Yeah, I had a great therapist in my late 20s, and he led me to Codependent No More, or Codependent No More, and then Codependent Anonymous. Yeah. And yes, so when I was in my, like, I don't know, 30s, I joined Codependent. I knew I was a codependent. And yeah, I mean, you don't have, you can be a love addict. And if you're a love addict, you're most likely going to be codependent. If you're a codependent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a love addict. You could be codependent on, with work or with friends or colleagues. You don't have to necessarily be codependent with relationships. But yes, early on, I knew that I was a codependent, and it started to have an inkling. I don't think I knew the word love addiction till later on. Mm-hmm. But once I grasped it, I knew that, there was an issue. I think it was also relationship addiction, just the need to be in a relationship, not just to be loved. And the addiction to romance, that early romance. I love that feeling of falling in love, the hormones and the endorphins, kind of going all over the place. That was my high. Mm-hmm. That was my fix. And it's, that I think about, like, the dating apps today. Those are like such a love addict's nightmare, because you're just going to constantly be looking for new candy, something new and shiny. And then you're going to have to deal with all the rejection and the ghosting and the disappearing acts. And it's so painful for people today. And then we also have an epidemic of people attracting narcissists. That's a huge issue too, that I write about in my book. Is, I know that addicts, when they're in their disease, have sort of this narcissistic trait, and some of them are full-blown narcissists. But you have to really be careful, because if you are a love addict, you are going to be vulnerable to attracting a narcissist. That is going to be like the perfect dance. They need the attention of you, and you need the attention of them. And so there you are. There's that codependent narcissistic dance.
I find that interesting, though, because I would have imagined, and I guess I do know some narcissists in my own life, but how would I ever expect a narcissist to be able to give me the time of day? Like, do they? Or is part of love addiction the wanting and wanting and wanting of their love and affection that never comes? Like, is that part of it too?
Oh, that's a great question, Sarah. Well, what happens with a narcissist is usually they're really addictive in how they court you. They say all the right things. They know exactly what to say. I mean, I'm going to be honest, when I brought my ex-husband back into my life, he had all the right words, he had all the right things. He had said all the right things. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to lots of meetings. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Of course, he never did any of it. So they know how to suck you in. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to look at your part. What is it in me that I'm allowing myself? What is so empty inside of me that I'm believing all of this stuff? Mm-hmm. I had a really reliable dad, so I didn't think people lied. I just thought, you say something, you thought, that you're going to do what you say what you do, mean what you say. That's not always the case. So they say what you want to hear. They suck you in. And then when they get what they need, they throw you out. They basically have their narcissistic supply. And then, they just don't need you anymore. And so then suddenly you're now, what you were saying, now you're grasping for that illusion of what you had. Mm-hmm. You want that other person back. And I think that was the hardest thing about letting go of my fourth husband, is that he had this really sweet side, and I kept wanting that side back. Mm-hmm. But he's also that other side, and you have to embrace the whole person, not just part of a person.
Well, and you have to embrace the whole person. And I suppose you also, that other person, if they don't see that there's an issue with their behavior, if they don't see that it's a problem at all, then they're not going to change. So like you say, you either have to embrace the whole person as they are, or, if that person is willing to work on these things, then maybe there's some hope for the relationship. But I think that without it, it's,
and because they're a narcissist, like you said, they don't really necessarily realize they have an issue. Like, they really believe their lies. Like, oh, well, I told you that, but so what? I'm just going to ignore that. That's what I said to you, because I don't care I have no empathy for what you want. They believe their own stories. It's very complicated, and I don't want to complicate this interview for people, but I think just have to know that if someone's coming off really strong and they're really like addictive in how they're courting you and how they're trying to get you into their life, you know, you better have your red flags up, because, you know, I think it's supposed to be slow and steady. I don't think it's supposed to be so dramatic and so, you know, powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really well put. And I think, so with your coaching, so I know you do one-on-one coaching with people as well. So people could either go that far with you if they wanted to, but will they be able to learn how to get away, how to heal love addiction if they do your online group coaching program, Wake Up Recovery?
I Wake Up Recovery will probably have a component of love addiction right now, not yet. So I don't want them to think that's what they're going to get with that. They can go to my website. I have some courses on codependency, 2 courses actually. I have a love addiction course on my website they can take. Eventually I'll add some pieces to love addiction and Wake Up Recovery. But right now I would say Wake Up Recovery is more about diving deeper into the law of attraction in their recovery process, or if they're a recovery professional and they're trying to build out their brand.
Okay, recovery from drugs and alcohol mainly.
And codependency. There, you know, it's funny that you asked that, because there are people like on the Facebook group that they're going through these breakups. So I'm kind of supporting them, but I don't want people to join if that's what they think the whole course is about. I think if they're looking for real love addiction answers, they probably want to pick up my book, The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, and maybe work with me one-on-one.
Okay, well done. That's great. Okay, so let's keep going with your story. I want to keep diving deeper, and I want to ask you more about love addiction, because I know that I get a lot of messages from people asking if we're going to cover this topic. So I really want to dive deep. How do we know when it's a good, healthy, normal feeling that we have, and whether it's an addiction, like whether we're obsessing, or like, how do we define? Because I mean, it's hard to know when we're just regular people, we're in love, we want to be in relationships. How do we delineate?
Well, I think real love, and I think I've had a few of those, are more nurturing. They're more inspiring. They're spiritual. There's intimacy. There's presence. There's connection. There's respect. I mean, I think you're in a really good relationship, correct, Sarah?
Yeah.
So, you know, you probably could answer this even better than me, but it's just a flow. I don't think it's as complicated as some people make it. I don't think it has an addictive quality. I think it's you know, it's healthy connection. It's healthy connection. And again, I have to say, until you connect with yourself, how can you possibly connect with somebody else in an intimate way? That's going to scare the you-know-what out of you.
Yeah.
You know, the person that's really available and really wants to show up for you is not going to be the person that you're going to attract, because you're not even showing up for yourself. That's a really important piece.
Yeah. And I'm hearing that. So how do we do that? How did you do that?
Well, about the time I was writing the book, The Law of Sobriety, I found an amazing therapist that did what's called somatic experiencing. And this is Peter Levine's book. He has a great book called Waking the Tiger. And I realized this thing that I knew made me different was PTSD. I was not connected to my body. And so through the work with this therapist, I really got in touch with my body and really connected and really woke up, and thus the name Wake Up Recovery, because that was when I really realized, even with my 4th husband, this is not okay. I couldn't do it anymore. I was so awake in my body, I couldn't settle anymore for less than what I deserved. So that's really it. It's connecting with your body. I know other people like do yoga. I know people do things like EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization. But I really found that this somatic work, where you actually feel the feelings in your body, the felt sense, like, you know, vibrations in your body, you know, cold, sweaty hands, you know, looking at your palms, you know, I know it sounds crazy, but, you know, even with people that are alcoholics who take the alcohol away, are they still really present? They're more present because they're no longer numbing out, but are they really present? You know, we talk about in the program, you know, being present, being mindful, but that's a process. You've got to get into your body, you've got to connect to your body. And whatever way works for you, whether it's the somatic work, whether it's yoga, that worked for me, working with this amazing somatic practitioner.
I hear that from a lot of people that are working, that are really working hard in their recovery, that the somatic piece, just meaning that body piece, connecting somehow with even the breath.
Or the breath, right.
You know?
Exactly. I totally agree with you. But then I have to, you know, caution people, then you can go to sleep again. you can fall asleep again. If you're vulnerable, if you're going through a tough time, like I did when my dad died, I needed to self-medicate again. And what's the best thing for me to self-medicate is bring my ex-husband back into my life. You know, there it is again. There it is. Just like it, you have to have a rigorous program in your life. And that's also, I think, where the law of attraction keeps me, I have to just keep diving deeper and deeper into that, because it's just so easy to forget and to fall asleep.
So when you talk about falling asleep and diving deeper into the law of attraction, how do you actively go about diving deeper into the law of attraction? What does that look like in your life?
Well, I became a life coach of the law of attraction. I took a 1-year program. So she has all kinds of exercises and meditations that I listened to that were part of the program. I'm constantly studying. I'm constantly reading. I don't think every day I have something in my ear. Like today I listened to something by Elizabeth Gilbert. That wasn't really law of attraction, but it was very positive and very inspiring. It's all repetition. That is the whole thing. It doesn't, go to Audible, pick up Audible books, whatever they are, and have it in your ears constantly. That's what I tell my clients. Got to have these principles in your ears all the time, whether it's mindfulness, law of attraction, anything that, changes the vibration inside of you, because it's so easy to go to that low vibration. The way you're going to go to a high vibration is having that stuff in your ears. And I'm not saying you can't feel bad or have bad moods or, be sad. You have to acknowledge those feelings. But I think if you continually, even picking up a meditation book in the morning, like this morning I read my Al-Anon meditation book. That's the law of attraction. Reading something positive. What else can I say? I take a lot of courses. I did a 6-month training with Bob Proctor. I don't know what else. I've just done a lot of studying, a lot of reading.
Well, I think that's really what you're really saying is that, filling our cup and really keeping our minds filled with the kinds of information and the quality, so that the quality of our thoughts can be raised, right? Isn't that the whole thing? Thoughts become things. So if we can keep raising, like you say, raise that vibration by all of the inputs coming in. There are so many negative inputs that just come from living in this world. So
watching the news.
Exactly, which I try to avoid as often as possible.
Yeah, I noticed that when I stopped watching the news, it really changed things. And that's the whole thing with Wake Up Recover is just, I have, like I said, the 10-week recordings, 10 hours of recordings, and then every month I have more recordings. And they're all things that these, my tribe can put in their ears and listen to. And it's actually working. I have one recovery coach. He's already started his own Facebook group. He's come up with a name for his group, little things, little steps, but he couldn't even do that. He's going to create a website. I have another one that's doing vision board workshops. By having this stuff in your ears, it just motivates you and inspires you to take action. And that's really what I want to see out of people. And then not just recovery action, but action in all their lives, their relationships, their health. I have another guy, he's doing yoga regularly. I have another one who meditates regularly. Whatever you keep, what you keep doing is going to keep showing up. You're going to, just like the saying, the more gratitude you have, the more you have to be grateful for. The more you do these positive things, the more positive things are going to show up.
You've mentioned a couple of times that you attend Al-Anon meetings. And I know in your book, the Marriage and Relationship Junkie, you talk about, a little bit of a foray into drugs and alcohol use when you were younger, and then a little bit again later on. I don't know if you want to talk about your alcohol or drug use, because I know that you don't identify as an addict in that way. But I'm curious as to why then the decision to go to Al-Anon meetings.
Oh, okay. Well, that was because I was married to an alcoholic and I really needed the support. As far as alcoholism, there were times in my life that I abused. It's kind of a sensitive subject. I don't know, how you feel about this, Sarah. You may have your own feelings, but sure, in college, I was a binge drinker. And then later on in my 30s, during this certain hormonal time in a woman's life, I was probably drinking more than I should. But what I realized was there is a difference between abusing at different times in your life and being an alcoholic. I can stop. Did I make some poor choices when I drank at times? Sure. But I think sometimes that is what we would call substance abuse versus actual alcoholism. That's I don't want anyone out there hearing this interview going, oh, she's really an alcoholic. What is she saying? Or maybe that's me. Maybe I'm just abusing and I'm really not an alcoholic. I take alcoholism really seriously. And if you're a real alcoholic, don't be playing that game thinking that you're just abusing substances. That's why I kind of stay away from this subject, because I don't want anyone, because, you know, alcoholic's brain will go, oh, well, maybe that's me. Maybe I can just kind of, you know, maybe it's just different times of my life. I think you know if you're an alcoholic or not. I think you know deep down in your heart.
I was just going to say, I think that's really the biggest key of it all, is that it's that voice, that whisper that comes to us, and that whisper and that voice, obviously that didn't come to you. You weren't worried about your own drug or alcohol use. Like that wasn't something that came up for you. Love addiction, on the other hand, that is something.
Well, there you go, because the love addiction is what fueled maybe the substance abuse at times. In other words, I have no problem saying I am a codependent and love addict. I can say in recovery, in the soul of my being.
Yeah.
Did I drink sometimes more than I should in certain situations around love addiction? Absolutely. So I think that's the piece that I'd like to share. I just take it so seriously. I don't want anybody to kid themselves out there if they have a real problem.
We have a real problem. So your fourth husband, then he was an alcoholic. And did you know that going into the relationship, or did that only reveal itself later on?
So I met him, and yes, I knew he was in recovery, but very early recovery.
Okay.
And he was actually sober for 7 years, but never had a program. And that was the problem. He had an accident at work and they gave him painkillers. And then that, you know, turned into his drug of choice, which is alcohol. And I just could not, I mean, he could not get sober for about 2 years. It was just, I must have put him in 4 rehabs, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So we got divorced. I couldn't deal with the drama anymore. It was just too much. And
this was before you became a psychotherapist?
No, I was already a psychotherapist.
Interesting. Because I imagine that must have been really challenging as a psychotherapist, watching somebody that you
How about a psychotherapist that works in addiction?
Yeah.
That's, you know, that makes it really tough. Yes. But, you know, if you're asleep and you're not really, and you're just accepting the unacceptable, that's what you get, you know? But no, you got to have a program in your life. So he didn't. And so of course he relapsed with the painkillers and then the alcohol, and he couldn't get sober. So we were apart for 4 years. And then, like I was telling you earlier, my dad died, and my mother got this dementia and picked this horrible guy. And I was just lost. And so there he comes in, you know, hey, I'm back. I'm sober. And I'll do everything. I'll go to meetings. I'll get a sponsor. I'll do all these things. And, you know, there I was, vulnerable, and took him back in my life. And
did any of his promises come true?
I stayed sober for 2 years, but, you know, that's about it. I mean, that's great. And I accepted that. And I finally said, okay, I just have to accept the unacceptable. You know, he's sober, and I guess this is the best he could do in terms of showing up for his recovery. And I just kind of accepted that. And then the relapse came, and I had to own my part, you know, I had to own my part. Like, you relapsed, but I took you back without a program. Like, I should have asked you to leave a long time ago if you weren't going to do a program like you promised. So I had to own my part. I can't, you know, we can't be victims in this thing. Like we talked about in the beginning of the interview, it's a series of choices. And these are the choices that we make. And this is how our life, you know, this is the reality of our life. So anyway, he is back in rehab. He's getting sober. I wish him well. I have detached with love. I hope he finds his way. I really do. He's a great person. But I need to go on a different path.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it's also hopeful, you know?
I think it's extremely hopeful, because I think what it's sounding like to me is that truly, for what might be like the real first time of your life, you've come through so much of what you then now teach, that you're now really on the other side of it. And I feel like, you know, you needed to almost have that relapse. Like, I relapsed with alcohol 4 years into my recovery, and for me, it was honestly the best thing that could have happened, because prior to that, I sort of thought I'd licked it. I sort of believe, I believed that I was just going to live this way and it was fine and I was doing all right. But still in the back of my mind, I had those thoughts and I had those feelings, and it was like, will I drink again? And so finally just doing it. And I spent 2 weeks where, a glass of wine here and thinking, okay, I can do this. And then 2 glasses of wine there. And anyway, and finally one night getting completely drunk, and realizing, you know what, this is not the path that I want to go on. And just like we're talking about with the law of attraction, it was for me looking myself in the eyes and saying, is this the direction that I want? So I know what's here. And I have worked so hard to be over there. And I really, really know that that is where I need to be. So I have to continue to make the choices that keep me over there, as opposed to digging myself an early grave over here. So,
well, congratulations, Sarah. I mean, that's amazing. And you're right. It is a relapse. I had a relapse. You had a relapse.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. And, we have to honor our truth. We have to honor who we know that we are, and can't write a book about marriage and relation junkie and then keep, falling into these situations. That's not authentic. And I need to be really authentic, as you need to be authentic. And it makes such a difference. I mean, as sad as I am at times, I'm like I said, I do get hopeful, and I do, I'm living in truth, and that's the best we can do. And then we have to be really compassionate with ourselves. Like, yeah, I made a choice out of vulnerability. My dad died. I was lost. Okay. So I relapsed. Am I going to beat myself up forever? No, I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to have great compassion, because that needed to happen. And I guess to your point about you kept having in your mind that idea that, can I drink again? The same thing, I think. I never let Scott go. I never really let him go, even though we were divorced, legally. I think emotionally, I never let him go. So I had to really finally let him go.
Yeah. So when did you start going to Al-Anon? Was it when you were married to him?
Yes. When I was married, and then he had probably maybe a year after his relapse, I realized I needed help. And I just have the most amazing sponsor, and she's just incredible. And I really love the program. I think it's great. I think that's what I'd recommend to anybody who's, someone they love is struggling. It's really painful. It's really tough to watch somebody, hurt themselves.
And what I find fascinating is that even though you've been divorced for several years, you continue to go.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, I go more now than ever.
What's that? Sorry, say that again.
I go more now than ever. I mean, I go to more meetings now than ever. I mean, to be perfectly honest, during the 2 years he was back into my life, I was not going as often. I was going once a week. And you know what? That was not okay. Here I am saying, you don't have a program. Well, I didn't have a program. And maybe if I was going to more meetings and really working the program, I wouldn't have allowed the unacceptable behavior. So, we all have to own our parts.
Well, you certainly own your part. You are an amazing powerhouse. Thank you so much for this time with me, and for all of the incredible work that you are doing in the world. You are changing lives, and you are sharing hope with people, that there is hope, that even if we have slips and falls, that we can come back and rise above and just continue to use the law of attraction in our lives to create the results that we want to see. So thank you, Sherry Gaba, for being with me today.
You're so welcome, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So one last time, for people to find you, where are the best places?
SherryGaba.com is my website. All kinds of free content there. Lots of blogs and ebooks that are free. WakeUpRecovery.com. And then, of course, my book, The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, on Amazon. And thank you for having this platform to allow me to share my work. I really, really appreciate you, Sarah.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you again. And thank you, Mocha, for making an appearance.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks.
To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit SobrietyStartsHere.com.